Musk Players. I'm Mark Santamartino, and this is your weekly dose of, well, generally all things gaming, film, entertainment. But this week we're only talking about one thing. It's going to be Red Dead Redemption 2. Sitting next to me is Julian Price and Mason. Boys, we can't get out. I almost forgot your first name, by the way.
Ryan. It's not Mason.
I know it's Ryan Mason, but I call you... Anyway, Maso, it's amazing that we've been able to extricate ourselves from this world. We'll get to that in a second, but we are going to talk about some other things later in the podcast. Maso?
We're going to be talking about Sony has unveiled the PlayStation Classic. They've given us the list of games that's going to be on it.
Yes, and there's a few notable omissions. We'll run through all 20 and see what we think. Jules?
Tim and I went to PAX.
Woo!
Cameraman Tim.
Sorry. Full title, Cameraman Tim. Part-time. Yes, we went to PAX, and yeah, we'll talk about that and what we saw, and yeah.
I love PAX. Wasn't able to go this year, but has plenty on display, and from what I understand, a really cool little thing was set up by EA. Is it EA who runs Hitman?
Edios, isn't it?
There was a cool little Hitman setup where you could go in and get your head shaved to skip the queue.
Yeah,
So we'll talk
like
about
the
that.
greatest Disney Fast Pass ever.
I would never do that. Lose this?
Yeah,
No way.
that's too big of a sacrifice for you. That's like where all your personality comes
That's
from.
it. It's a signature.
Red Dead Redemption 2 came out this week. It's one of the biggest games of the year, if not the biggest game. In fact, it's one of the most successful. I think it had the second biggest entertainment launch of all time, only second to GTA 5. So Rockstar would be very, very, very happy with all of the cash that is pouring into their coffers after spending so many years making this game. Now, we're all at different stages. I think Maso is the furthest along. You're sort of towards the end of Chapter 3.
Yeah, I had a day off. I don't think you two have had a day off yet, so...
Jules is a little bit behind me. I'm in Chapter 3 at the moment. So what we want to do is talk about this game in the least spoilery way possible, because Cameraman Tim has not had any time to play at all, has literally not touched it. Do you even own the game?
I own it. It's
He owns it. It's installed. He just hasn't touched it quite yet.
I have
So
an adult life.
we'll try to avoid the story spoilers. But that being said, it's one of the things we'll chat about. Story isn't necessarily all that important, at least in the first 10 hours or so of the game. So how much have you played, Maso, and what are your initial feelings?
I think I'm up to maybe 14, 15 sort of hours. And I love it. It's great. But I'm more in love with the world.
Yep.
Rather than the gameplay and the story. Just being in that world is the best thing for me in that game.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, that is the best thing for me in that game.
We'll get to this in a little bit more detail, but is it fair to say, at least I think you're on the same page as me, world amazing, story maybe not so much, controls maybe not so much, but the fact is the world is so enjoyable and there's so much to potentially see and do, and there's all those possibilities that's what keeps getting you to come back.
Yeah. This is a flawed game. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 by any means. It's definitely got some flaws in it, but it's the best open world that I've ever seen, and it raises the bar significantly in that department. And it looks amazing.
Your thoughts initially?
Well, you mentioned Grand Theft Auto.
This
Craps on Grand Theft Auto so hard.
Yeah.
I love this game. I don't think I've played a game like this in a while. It's in a different category than Spider-Man, because I still think Spider-Man was a better game than Red Dead Redemption. But
you haven't finished it yet, by the way. So
I haven't finished it yet.
It's premature.
That's true.
We don't know how the story's going to escalate. But, I mean, there's so much in this game that we can talk about. Let's start with that, the story. Because you were initially thrown into the game without a whole heap of context. All you really know is that you are a group of outlaws on the run after a botched job. And it effectively unfolds from that. That's not a spoiler, Tim. It's just the...
What do you mean you're a cowboy?
There's guns. You can ride horses.
It's set in 1899. Is it? And it's a prequel to Red Dead Redemption, the original one, which I think we've got. Well, not the original, the sequel that no one actually officially
The first
says.
redemption one.
The first Redemption.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we won't go into too much detail, but basically the story and the reason I suppose you're on the run, the cause and effect, isn't necessarily all that important in this game. It is simply about, initially in the first couple of hours, getting to know the others in your crew. It's a slower style of storytelling. How have you found that initially?
It's the slowest I've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah.
It's really slow.
Yep.
Most of it is travelling, and then
Yeah.
just the chat with on your travels. It's
Yes.
not.
Yeah. I mean, when you find yourself herding sheep for a mission, I find myself walking out of the room. You don't need to do that.
That was very, I must say that was, it only happens once.
Yeah,
the mission variety is very, very good. And we'll
Yeah.
explain a bit more about that in due course. But So the point-to-point missions, I mean, even the way you progress the story is a bit convoluted, because at any given time you might have 5 or 6 different things to do, but not any of them necessarily is the one with the big exclamation point on it saying this is what you need to do to progress the story.
It's really scattered storytelling.
Really scattered, yeah.
But it's not terrible. I mean, each mission is very different, and it doesn't. I don't want to say too much, but.
I feel
You're
like...
going to say something, Jules.
Well, I was just going to say, it doesn't... they don't connect to each other necessarily.
I feel like I'm I think 36% through when you look at your little progress thing, and I think I've read somewhere that it's a 60+ hour story, but I feel like it's maybe a 30-hour story that's been stretched into a 60+ hour story, if you know what I mean.
Well, there's a lot to get distracted by, and I suppose that is that is both.
But that's the beautiful part of the world that we love. Yeah.
It's the best bit about it, because randomly, as you're riding your horse to a different mission, or potentially just roaming to do some hunting, you inevitably come across some characters, and it almost has a very Legend of Zelda feel to it, in that you'll randomly be on the way to something and think, what's that over there? Even just then, I got a message from my cousin who's spent the day playing it, saying that if you come across this really fat pig farmer trying to get you to have dinner with his product of incest daughter, don't do it. And
why would you?
That was I know, but of course. Normally you would not accept that dinner invitation, but it's a video game, so you're going to. But basically, I love that there's this discussion, because there's so much to do that we might miss things.
Well, that's the other thing I've noticed playing it, is that there's so many random events that can happen. I feel like I've already missed 10% of the game because I've ridden past it. Or I've got a dialogue option and I'm like, oh, hang on, no, I'm halfway through doing this other thing, so I'll just cancel that and go to the other thing. I feel like I've already skipped a fair bit of the game just for my choices in playing.
Definitely.
Now, I just wanted to bring this up while we were talking about it, because as you mentioned, riding in between points while you're on your way to a mission is a big part of this game. And one thing that I actually really enjoy, and I can't believe that no other game has really done this so far, is to have these great cinematic cameras. It's just an easy option. You hold down a button and all of a sudden every single angle, I suppose, that they show you is almost like it was shot for a proper cinema.
Yeah,
like
except every time I hit it, I run over a rock and horse flies off. And...
No, you just got to hold the button down.
I know, but I forget to steer.
Yeah.
GEA's had that.
Well, I don't...
Not like this.
Not like this. Yeah. Not really? Like this. It's very involved. The shots are beautiful, and it really just helps, I suppose, when you want to lay back, just listen to the conversation, the dialogue.
Yeah.
You can hold down just the X button to allow your horse to keep...
Yeah, you can auto follows when they're having dialogue and stuff.
And also when you stand still and don't do anything for a while, which I found myself getting interrupted a lot, and just quickly putting controls down, not pausing, it turns into that cinematic mode.
Does it? Okay, I didn't realise that.
Camera starts going around you, getting all pretty, so it's good.
Now, while we're on the topic of controls, how are you finding them? Because I know they're a bit hit and miss for some people.
Yeah, I thought GA5 had the same problem. There's literally just too many actions to fit on the controller.
Yeah.
You find yourself, you've got to hold L2, use the right stick, release L2 to get a gun out.
Yeah.
And you just
that was
difficult.
Once you play through enough, it's pretty simple.
They're complicated, I'll say that.
Look, there's bits and pieces that annoy me. Like, I hate when I've got to hold down a button to do an action.
Yeah.
When you could just push it. I don't know, it's like if you want to...
Especially with selling things.
Yeah,
hold down, I'm like, come on, I really want to sell this faster.
Yeah.
Especially when you got like 5, salted steaks, and you're like, I want to get rid of all 5 of them. Wheel goes around. You're like, oh my god.
But it is like, even for simple things like looting. I mean, I'm all for having a slow animation where you got to roll them over, open their jacket, lift out their wallet. Great.
Yeah.
But just the holding down of a button, and sometimes it's actually quite convoluted, where it'll be like, pick up a body with X, but open a door with circle. And you're like, both. Why can't they both be on the same action button? Or sometimes it's triangle, and it's just a bit...
I've actually found, I swear once, pick up a body square or whatever it is. I swear once it was circle. Because there was something else and it's changed button. But I think that's the problem. There's so many actions, so many things you can do that each button on your controller has about 4 different... That's why you've got to hold it down every time it comes up.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Might be a way to stop you getting complacent.
To stop us getting complacent. We are in the Wild West, after all. While we're talking about controls, I mean, one thing that I found, I complained about it to you earlier today, Maso, was the fact that horse controls, at least to me, they don't feel great, particularly when you're being chased by a bandit of bounty.
And you're shooting as well. Yeah.
You're turning around trying to cap some people as they follow you, get the Deadeye system running, all of a sudden you run into a rock, your horse stops dead, to maneuver it and try to run away. All of a sudden you're swarmed and you're
Or you
dead
just
with your
stat
dead.
it so hard and your horse dies.
To be honest, I haven't played Zelda, but I haven't played a game where horse riding is well done. In The Witcher, it's no good as well.
It's great in Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, I haven't played Zelda.
Oh, I tell you right now,
I
it's
don't
good
think
in
it's
Zelda.
terrible.
The one,
It's enjoyable.
The one problem I don't like about The Witcher 3 is the horse riding. I can't stand it.
It is still better than Assassin's Creed, where as
Yeah,
soon as you
yeah.
want it to just go somewhere, it brings up this imaginary line and your horse just follows
That's
it.
Assassin's Creed though. Even when you're walking down
Yeah.
the street, you get magneted to
I
a
love
wall
that
and
about The
you
Witcher,
fall
though, that when you could just hold down X and it just follow the path.
We are getting distracted. We're talking about Red Dead.
Yeah.
And I suppose this does something similar, but also the camp life. Camp life is so central to this game, and I suppose you're probably either going to love it or hate it. It's slow moving around the
You
camp.
can't run in the camp.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
Or ride your horse
You've
in
got to
either.
go. You can't ride your horse.
You
and
can't even jog.
run. No.
You can't power walk in the
So
camp. You can't.
And your tent is always on the far outer edge.
Yeah.
And every mission's on the other side. And you're there strolling across. And 3 of your camp buddies want to come up and have a conversation with you. And you just want to get over there.
Oh, I feel like we've got a lot to complain about.
I know, we're really
the
relying
game
on it.
actually is incredible.
Yeah, we are. Oh, well, look, let's focus on some of the positives.
I think so.
It is stunning.
Beautiful.
We were very concerned about how this game was going to run on
We spoke about it last
our
week.
base level PlayStations
Yeah.
because we've seen a few faults with Assassin's Creed. You reckon you saw some slowdown in Spider-Man as well. This runs beautifully on a PlayStation
I haven't
4's
had
base
any
model.
problems.
No
and
problem.
and it looks good, but they haven't really overdone it. Like, there's no groundbreaking graphics to this game. I haven't looked and just gone, wow, that's new.
Everything's
It
done
looks-
very well.
Yeah.
It's simple yet really effective.
Well,
I would say that what I've written here, the weather system in this game is the
Beautiful.
best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The sunny days and cloudy days. And then if you've ever seen a thunderstorm in it, it's frightening how good
so
it is.
good.
Yeah, it's so good.
But the weather system's so fast as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to rain for like a whole day.
Exactly,
It just
yeah.
annoy you.
Yeah.
So you see this storm roll in, the lightning flashing, and then 2 minutes later it's just gone.
And let's not, we don't want to give the opening away, but the snow effects in the very start of the game, the best I've ever seen.
Yeah,
by
best I've
far.
seen.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was funny, because it is quite a glitchy game, there are certain things that we'll talk about a bit later, but there was one sequence where I was going into a cutscene and it was already raining, and even though I was knocking on somebody's front door and we were undercover, they still had the sheen on them as though they were wet. You know, they were just
Could have been
overly
out in the
reflective.
field. It could have been out in the field.
No,
you
should have
know.
been inside all day, mate.
Yeah.
And, anyway, look, irrelevant. It looks fantastic 99% of the time. And I think you've got a little montage that you've made up of just sunsets and sunrises.
Yeah, Jules is. Well, I shouldn't take claim of this. Jules has recorded some footage that we'll be playing over the top of this
pretty
right
sure
now.
you've got some too.
Yeah,
Oh,
yours is better.
oh, come
No, but it is fun to look, and I'm going to say that even though it's probably not breaking any new ground, it's not looking better than any other game out there, I still think it's on par with things like a God of War in terms of character animation and facial animations, and given how linear that game was, to see it replicated in an open world is pretty bloody
It's
fantastic.
technically unbelievable.
And I will say that the character animation and just the animations in general, there are so many single animations that they've put together for this game, which you'll never see again. Whether it be a guy getting randomly kicked by his horse as you walk past, or
It's a one-time, 1 second animation that you'll see once in the game, and you might not even see it. You
Yeah.
might ride past it.
that's probably why these games take so long to make.
Yeah.
But that being said, Rockstar always gets an almighty payday at the end of it, so they can probably justify it. And I don't know, there's so much else in it, like there's poker, there's fishing, all things that I
Oh,
wouldn't necessarily care
that's-
about individually. But
Well, I do, because I'm sick of playing Gwent and all these made-up card games. Finally, we can sit down and play Texas Hold'em poker.
Yeah.
Like a regular, everyone knows that it's regular cards. It's good fun, actually. I sat there for nearly an hour once playing poker.
An
Just
hour?
wanted to- Yeah, because I wanted to...
Didn't do
you
that.
got to win the
I
5
wanted
hands.
to- I won more than the 5 hands, but I wanted to, bid the other guys out. So I wanted them to go home with nothing. I wanted the whole lot.
It's amazing how competitive you are in
Yeah.
virtual form. One thing that I did want to mention is, I suppose, the way the world slowly unfolds. I mean, it's very daunting when you see that map. Sometimes you're moving to other sides of it when it's completely zoomed out and you can't see any of the areas that you've been in. It's
It's
actually...
like fog of war sort of thing to it. Yeah.
And, I mean, we get the gist that the camp obviously moves around, but I want to know where you went. Did you go anywhere in particular? Did you try to explore off the beaten
I've
track?
tried.
Yeah.
And been killed.
I went straight east, pretty much from the get-go.
Why? Everything you need to do is north. Why are you going east?
Because everything I need to do was north.
Right.
So I just went the other way.
No,
and just rode until I found this massive river, and then I found this town called Fort something or other. I can't remember what it's called now. Fort something or other. And then I hung around there for a little bit, because you don't have many bounties out that side east, so just cruise around there for a little
I suppose
bit.
it does highlight, even though you can access everywhere in the world and some people will really love that initially, it also goes to show that there's not a lot of progression in terms of leveling up your character.
Well, there is none. You start
Yeah.
the game as the best you'll ever be.
They do have a good honor system.
Yeah, the honor system's fine, but that's
Yeah.
Can I just ask which side of the honor system you've gone to?
I'm trying to stick to the good side, but then every now and then my horse dies, and I'm like, oh, I'm just stealing this horse now, aren't I? So you just got to make compromises.
I jumped onto a train
Yeah.
to think, oh, this will be cool. I'll just jump onto the train. No, they instantly think you're robbing the thing and try and kill you.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot.
Well, how
I
many
killed them
people
all
are
because I had to,
jumping on
do,
trains?
I had to defend myself. So they're all dead. And I got this massive bounty.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well,
My
worth it.
bounties in two areas, New Hanover and West Elizabeth, are high. West Elizabeth, high. Like $500 or something.
Which
but-
doesn't sound like a lot in our money, but when you consider how much you can buy for $1
No,
in this
like
game,
I
it's
sold a horse
insane.
the other day, $4.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Nice.
cheap.
What sort of rubbish horse is that?
Well, it is $18.99. Actually, I will ask you that quickly, because this game, even though it gives you the perception of a lot of freedom, a lot of the times there's only one or two ways. In fact, there's probably only one way to do things. You jumped on a train and automatically they thought you were you were
Yeah.
being robbed.
Same with the missions. The missions are very like you have to sort of do it this way.
Yeah,
You
they're
can't
linear.
really. Yeah.
One thing that frustrated me is that I'm in chapter 3. I'm sort of in between a war between two houses. You know, they're both on plantations and they've just traditionally hated each other. So you got to sneak in and out. But in one mission, I was trying to deliver a message from one house to the other one, and you're not supposed to injure anyone in these houses. It's a piece of the story. I jump on my horse and I'm trying to ride to where I need to go, and one of their workers just steps out from behind a bush, clean him up, failed the mission because I injured the greys.
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. You hit a lot of things on that horse, don't you?
And you know what? I was doing this other mission, which I feel like I've got to mention because I actually captured some video of it, so we'll bring it up now. I'm trying to save this kid from this religious cult.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes to essentially kill himself, and it gives you one of those slow-mo moments where you can, whip out your gun, and
Yeah, it's your
the whole
Mac,
thing
yeah.
is you've got to stop him from killing himself. Now, when you whip out your gun, you're pointing at his feet. So I'm thinking, I've got to take this guy out as fast as possible. I'll kneecap him.
That is not a thing you do.
Kneecapped him.
I did not think to do that.
Mission
at all.
failed.
No, neither.
Mission failed. You had to shoot the gun out of his hand.
Santa's just like kneecap
Oh,
him. That'll
Well, I'm
solve
just,
the problem.
it's
This
non-fatal.
little kid who's obviously not going to shoot at all.
Non-fatal.
Kneecap.
Non-fatal.
Yeah, no.
Oh, in the
hospital.
West it could
Don't
be.
worry about it. He'll be alright. He'll have one less leg. He can't run off with the
120 years
convent.
ago, it could have been
Gangrene.
fatal.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, that's just something that I wanted to mention. But speaking of the funny little quirks, I mean, we've done a whole power of work saving every single time our horse has stacked it. It's one of the great little
it's the
intricacies
best.
of this game.
Yeah, it is the best. The physics of I don't know what it is. It's just hilarious when you stack your horse.
You copped it really early.
So early, the moment the map opened up to me after I'd finished the intro missions, you get your first horse. I'm like, you beauty. I went out east. This is me travelling out east. And I thought, right, so I'm riding along. Stagecoach. I'm over the top of the thing.
Out of
into
nowhere.
a tree. Out of nowhere. Horse is dead.
Yeah.
Done. Dead.
Unfortunately.
Stagecoach buggers off. And I'm stuck there in the middle of nowhere with no horse, ages away from the camp, and I had to turn around and run back.
No horse revives, mate.
Oh, no, well, yeah, maybe it's because of the
Oh,
games
yeah,
I used to
you
play. I'm
straight
standing
in.
over the horse going, revive.
I had a similar situation where I just saved this woman who was trapped under the horse on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere. I thought it could have been like, she'll pull a gun on me when I go and save her. It was just one of those things. But no, saved her. She was sad about her horse. I offered her a lift back to town. Started galloping off towards Valentine. I thought, I'll just jump this farm fence. Don't think you can jump with a passenger on. I hit the fence, went flying. She flipped over. We landed on each other, and then she screamed like I was attacking her and just bolted.
Hey, you were trying to
And
do
I'm
the
like,
right
I was
thing.
just trying to help, and I chased after her to see if she'd get back on the horse, but she didn't want to.
All right, we've been talking about this for 20 minutes, so how about we just quickly wrap it up? Is there anything else you wanted to mention about Red Dead? So, happy, story not doing it for you quite yet, but it's
happy.
ramping up.
Happy. I'm going to sink 100 hours into it probably.
Yep.
No doubt. Happy, but not a 10 out of 10, but 8 or 9. Yeah.
it's one of those ones where, because the world is so incredible, you sort of inevitably have to think of it in that realm of a masterpiece game. Whether you want to class it as a 10 or not is up to you, but it will go down as one of the greatest of this generation simply because the world is so well realised. It doesn't mean that the gun mechanics or the controls for riding your horse or the progression of the story or just the story in general is the best. And I think it would infuriate a lot of people because it is a slow burn, this game.
It's not for everyone.
No. It's the type of game that I would have hated a couple of years ago because I really didn't like the latest GTA, or GTA 4 is the one that really
GTA
put me
4
off.
wasn't that good though.
But look, I think this game, if you want to give it a go and you're willing to sink some time into it, particularly those first 2.5 hours, that is a note for you, Tim. The opening takes 2.5 hours. So if you want to make sure you've got at least that amount of time, you'll be able to get into this game properly. Jules?
I highly rate it.
I don't know, listen to you guys waffle on for a while and trying to turn me off.
All right, Tim's now less enthused after hearing us talk. Not great for the podcast. I'm sure our fans in Algeria would really be enjoying it, though. Let's move on. I have no idea what hit our
weird animal on the roof.
It's the Algerians.
If we can finally pull ourselves away from Red Dead Redemption 2, let's talk about some brief other news of the week. We finally got the full lineup of games for the mini PlayStation Classic, which I don't know if this is what you were... I mean, we knew there was going to be 20 games. We only knew 7 beforehand, so we know the last 13, Jules. I mean, is it doing it for you?
I'm considering getting it.
Yeah.
There's some games
Rainbow
here that...
6, baby.
Yeah,
Rainbow 6.
Yeah.
We got Cool Borders 2, which I thought was a great game. The original Grand Theft Auto.
Which we called. We said that would have to be on there.
Same with Metal Gear Solid.
Oddworld, I don't know about you, but I played that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
I'm devastated because there's no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
That's what I was saying. 'Cause, I think I mentioned that in our group. As soon as I saw it, I said, no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This is an immediate fail for me.
Was that a PlayStation?
Thank God.
Resident Evil.
I think it was PlayStation 1.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I think it
sure.
was.
If not, the original was PlayStation 1. Something should have been on
Probably
Either way,
because
though.
they've already remastered it.
Well,
I don't care.
don't fear, because I went on Spotify and found the playlist anyway. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's something to tide you over. And it was an original PlayStation game.
Yeah.
What was it?
There you
Yeah.
go. Look, we've also got Battle Arena Toshiden. I have no idea what that is.
Destruction Derby, I love.
Yeah, that'll be good fun.
That was the best fun.
Jumping Flash, I have no idea. Intelligent Cube, I have no idea. Look, apparently there was a Persona game. Is that a Persona game? Revelations Persona? Is that the same series that we know, or is that just a subtitle for something else? Ridge Racer Type 4 would be cool.
Great.
Street Fighters... Super Puzzle Fighter 2. I read that wrong.
Definitely not Street Fighter.
Siphon Filter, I have no idea.
Siphon Filter is...
It's good. Yeah. It's
Alright,
good,
Tim's
yeah.
giving us the double okay sign for Siphon Filter, whatever that
Tekken
is.
3, I reckon I sunk quite a few hours into Tekken 3.
Yeah.
And something called Wild Arms.
Rayman as well.
Yeah, Rayman will get some love. Same as Resident Evil.
Yep.
Again, I don't know how you miss out on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, but I feel like people would still buy this.
That might be a licensing issue.
Yeah, I reckon it is a licensing
It's his
issue.
name.
Because I don't think they're making the Tony Hawk games anymore. I'm pretty sure that's done.
They did one recently, but that might have been the last one.
I think it was
they
the
did
last
one
one.
recently.
Anyway, you're going to get it, Jules?
Oh, I just had a really random thought. Yeah, I probably would get it,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not straight away.
What's your random thought now? I want to know.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just bring up...
So we've had Tony Hawk. He's been the pro skater for all this last 20 years.
Mm.
Who's Tony Hawk now?
Ryan Sheckler.
Yeah, so that name doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of like how Tiger Woods was, the face of the golf games for so long, and now he's...
Najee Houston. Najee Houston's up there.
Now he's the face. of
Maybe
something else.
I'm still living on to my teenage years and still watching skateboarding, obviously.
Yeah. Bit of Bam Margera whenever you can. Is he still alive?
He's fat and old.
Is he fat and old?
He's so fat.
Disappointing for Bam.
He's doing okay.
His dad is a big guy too, though, isn't he?
Yeah, well,
He's
dad's
morphing into his
alive.
dad.
The one thing I will
It's a slow
say,
morph.
can I just quickly mention this? I think the PlayStation Classic, when it finally does come out, the one thing that's going to hit people hard is the fact that you're playing games in 3D and there's no joystick. I think we too readily forget that the original PlayStation had no joysticks.
Yeah.
So you're playing with a D-pad in 3D. It is not ideal in any way, shape or form.
Well, if
But-
it worked back then, hopefully it works now.
yeah, I'm sure it will work now, but it'll take a little bit of getting
The
used to.
PlayStation 1 had joysticks by the end. They brought out a second controller.
You reckon I have no idea if they
Before
did.
the PlayStation 2, they brought out a grey controller that had joysticks.
Apparently, according to Cameraman Tim, there was a second controller brought out before the PlayStation 1 ended. Jules, while you're talking about this next topic. I will look that up just to make sure that's right because I love to prove Tim is an idiot. The DualShock 2, apparently. Now, this week, I mean, it was a massive week in gaming down here in Melbourne because PAX, our video game expo, was on at the Exhibition Centre. Julian, you went along with Cameraman Tim. How was it?
It was interesting.
Yeah?
It was part of International Games Week.
Mm-hmm.
The whole week was dedicated to gaming in Melbourne. There's quite a few little things on, but PAX was obviously the highlight. Tim and I went along. We checked out a few things, but I guess some things of note that you could do at PAX was Super Smash Brothers was playable.
Oh, more for that.
Obviously not in its final form. We will get its final form at the Nintendo Direct on Friday, which is by the time this podcast comes out. We saw Kingdom Hearts 3. We also... There was Hitman 2 was on display, but there was an interesting way, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast. You could skip the line if you get your head shaved. I had a brief chat to the barber. I'm like, so, what do you think of Hitman?
Was
He's
there
like,
a tattoo artist?
I don't know anything about the game.
Oh, really?
I'm just here to shave people's heads. I'm like, okay, he knows nothing about the game.
What if you got your head shaved and, as Maso was about to allude to,
There was no tattooist.
then you just get a free copy of the game way early.
Yeah.
There was lots of classic consoles on display, like all the originals. My eye was drawn to an original Xbox playing Halo. I don't know why. That was really cool.
Yeah,
it was an arcade machine with Rampage. Remember Rampage? Where animals climbing the building. That brought back memories for me. Pinball Central. So many pinball games. So it wasn't just video games, which I loved. It was celebrating all games, card games, board games, even comic books. There was essentially a Comic-Con dedicated to video games.
Yeah.
And gaming itself. We saw so many indie games. Indie games are praised at this convention. It's unbelievable, and I think it's such a good thing, especially to see such strength in the Melbourne indie game section as well.
Yeah.
We saw some bizarre games. One where you had to control this android's head and move its mouth, and if you move it wrong, it goes out of control and explodes. It was just crazy.
Speech simulator.
That's what it was called.
Okay.
Speech simulator.
Don't know if I'd personally buy that game, but we'll support the
It was interesting.
It's like the start of Super Mario 64.
One that I didn't play, which I thought was interesting, it was on display, was this one where you can experience what it's like to live with autism. Or sorry, not autism, Asperger's. So there were so many interesting games, so many VR games.
So those sort of things would be great for parents.
Definitely, and it gives you such a good insight into something you may not be familiar with.
Yeah.
And there was this other bizarre game where it was just this screen with a parrot on it, and I thought, oh, that's a cool game. And then we found out there was actually someone behind the booth, like making the parrot talk, and it kind of put me off.
So like a virtual puppet show is what you're trying to describe right now.
Yeah, it was a virtual puppet show.
All I care about out of everything you've said so far is knowing whether or not you played Smash Brothers and if Banjo-Kazooie was somewhere hidden in the menu.
Banjo wasn't there. I'm sorry. You'll have to wait until Friday.
Alright.
So fingers crossed, because we'll put an article up if he does and we'll praise it.
I have a theory that Banjo-Kazooie, because it's a Microsoft property and they're obviously going to want some sort of a cut for having him included, he's not going to be in the main game because no way Nintendo is going to give Microsoft any percentage of the main game, but he will be included as DLC, and a high portion of how many times he is bought, the money that makes will go to Microsoft.
I think that's plausible.
That's my tip. Now, some other news of the week. We got a look at the new iPad Pro, which apparently is going to be just as powerful as the Xbox One S. Not the X, but the S, without a power cord. Now, this came from you, Jules. You found this one. So, I mean...
Well, it was just out of Apple's latest conference. I guess that's cool. It's interesting, but I mean, look at the price point.
What is the price point?
Well, what's a iPad Pro is over $1,000, maybe $1,500.
Xbox is like $400
a few $100 for an Xbox. It's incredible to see technology heading this way.
In a tablet form, though, that's pretty incredible. Think of what the next potential Switch could be.
What's your Surface like?
This.
Could you play games on it?
Haven't tried.
Yep.
That was a conversation killer. I was like, what were you asking for? Price point?
I don't know why you'd ever need an iPad to be that powerful. Like, what are you doing on an iPad?
Oh, people like to play Fortnite on iPads. I don't know why. Why anyone would want to play with...
I know, like, you're going to be playing
Fortnite's
games.
dead.
Like,
It's done.
But people play PUBG and stuff on there and all sorts of games.
Also done. The memes have spoken.
It's incredible to see, but I don't think I'd go and buy an iPad Pro to play games on it.
No, exactly. If I
No.
wanted to play video games, I'm not buying an
I'd
iPad.
rather buy an Xbox.
Although I see way too many kids playing games permanently on iPads when they're out and about, so maybe it'll be good for them.
I guess.
But think of the video editing and photo editing.
Yeah, I mean that is a really, really cool
Things
thing.
where
Yeah.
real application lies.
And I suppose they are pushing iPad Pro as an educational tool as well. So if they are able to bring these into schools and have kids do video editing, photo editing, or what is going to amount to them just drawing really detailed penises on whatever PowerPoint presentation they're given.
It's
Yeah, projected on the front of the classroom. Yeah.
Timmy, why don't you beam what you've got up there with Apple TV? Here you go, miss.
It's already half.
Animated penis.
3D.
Look,
3 double, dude.
we'll move on to. I wanted to make some joke about that Huawei phone that can 3D scan things, but I'll leave that. Fallout
It's the
70. Fallout 76 is going to have microtransactions. Is anyone surprised?
Well, I read the headline and I went, no. Not... Anyway.
No.
But they're good. In a sense, it's not going to kill the game.
Well, explain them.
Well, the microtransactions in Fallout 76 are supposedly just going to be cosmetic, much like Fortnite. So hopefully that doesn't ruin the game completely. Can I be honest? I don't think I'm going to get Fallout 76.
No, neither.
I haven't played a single Fallout game, so I'm not interested in this at all.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to get Fallout 76.
It's essentially Fallout 4, and from what I've been reading, it's hardly multiplayer in the first place. You just occasionally see other players.
From what I watched in the beta which I think I spoke about last week, it didn't actually look that good. But
It wasn't new.
But it's a
it didn't
beta.
look new.
It's a beta too, so yeah, it doesn't look new. It looks exactly like Fallout 4.
Real quick, apparently Twitter is removing their like button, which
Well,
they say
they're considering it.
they're considering removing the like button to improve the quality of debate on Twitter. I have some advice for anyone at Disney, which I believe they own Twitter. The like button is the only positive thing about Twitter.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It is-
Do not open the comments.
Yeah. The like button is the only show of support. Disable the comments and the
Yeah.
retweets if you want to actually improve the debate on Twitter.
It's a dark, dark hole, Twitter.
Yeah. Just seems completely disingenuous. And
But let's face it, not many people other than journalists really use Twitter anymore.
Twitter's the only social media I have.
Trump.
yeah, I was about to say Trump's on Twitter.
And Kanye.
And
Kanye's
Kanye.
on there.
Can't forget about Kanye.
Great. Two people we really need to read their
100% we do.
If I ever want to hear the inner thoughts of two people, it's Trump and Kanye.
Trump and Kanye, yeah, can't
You
wait.
know what? This is a real weird side note, but I was watching a lot of documentaries on China this week, just because I was interested.
It's pronounced
China. because Trump keeps talking about, I suppose, their influence on trade. And did you know that when Xi Jinping was made dictator for life,
Yeah.
that they wrote into essentially the Chinese constitution that his thought, like Xi Jinping thought, is considered part of their law, effectively. It's part of their constitution. Could you imagine if that was the same in America,
Oh
and in
my God.
100 years from now, we had to have some historians just completely dismantling every tweet that Donald Trump has misspelled, trying to work
Somebody
out
already has.
what part of his thought was
Yeah.
going on there.
Every time he tweets anything anyway, you always get someone commenting with a tweet that he tweeted 3 years ago
Yeah.
about that just contradicted what he was saying.
It's
So-
sensational.
Anyway,
It's probably the only the only reason why I like Twitter at this point in time. It's to be able to watch other people contradict themselves.
if you got to follow the right people. If you follow funny people and positive people, then Twitter's fine. If
Yeah.
you don't, it's horrible.
When I started Twitter, I'm like, I'm going to follow a whole bunch of comedians. They'll brighten up my day with 140 letters of just funny quips, and it's always like, got 20 tickets left to my show in Massachusetts. I can't even say that city. Anyone just go to this. That's not what I'm there for. No one cares about that. Don't use this to promote your stand-up tour. If you can't sell out your show, put some funny quips on Twitter.
Yeah, but Santa, what do you use Twitter for?
I just retweet
Your stories.
my stories. That's all it is. Yeah. Just for
Same thing.
wherever my fans are. And lastly, Jules, before we sign off for this week.
Just quickly,
Yep.
if you can head to mustplay.net.au, I've been playing pre-Red Dead for the last few weeks. I've been playing Call of Cthulhu.
Cthulhu.
It's Cthulhu.
We've been
I'm
talking.
gonna go. Whatever. Either way, I've been
It's
playing
spelled
whatever.
Cthulhu, but it's Cthulhu. Anyway.
Anyway, I've been playing it.
This is going to continue later.
Yeah.
It's a horror mystery RPG. So Yeah, I've been playing it. My review is up at mustplay.net.au. Check it out. It's not terrible. I'll give you that.
Your review or the game?
My review is terrible. But the game is not terrible.
That's where we put all the goodness that is Must Play, of course. You can also check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Throw us a like. Must Play AU is our handle for most of that. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining me for what amounts to episode 19. Next week, episode 20 of Must Play. Thank you so much, as always, for sharing your thoughts on Red Dead Redemption. I feel like it might be dominating our discussion for the next couple of weeks.
I think it's dominating every game that's discussion at the moment.
But there's a fair bit coming out, of course, towards, next month. We got the new Pokemon game, and there's plenty Smash Brothers is still coming, so we'll have our complete debrief on that next week as well. Thank you again for watching. Remember to leave a like, 5 stars, give us a review, whatever you want. Tim is desperate for me to say, catch you on the flip side. But for the moment, I will just say thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.